do the introduction, so then I will know when to start.
All right, so I would say let's start. So let me welcome Ramon Roca from Spain to talk about building and running free networks. Ramon, over to you.
Thank you. Do you hear me? Okay. First of all, I would like to thank to the OpenSUSE conference for inviting me to be here. It's a pleasure to talk about that particular case in terms of network infrastructures, which is something. It is not about software in that particular case, but I think that it's very well connected to the open source and you know, to the openness and all of this stuff. So thanks for letting me be here. And just because I'm curious, how many of you have been involved in wireless communities or this kind in the past or even in the present? Can you raise your hands? Some of you? Okay. Few. So it's already some, but still new audience. In this short, brief talk, I will try to be brief. I will not go in depth, but I'm going to try to explain what I think, in my honest opinion, the most important concepts to when you are trying to build infrastructures, open infrastructures. And I'm not going to spend that much time because on this slide, because in this slide it's trying to explain why internet is important, which I don't think in that audience it makes sense, but still makes sense to underline that. It is why internet is important. Sometimes you get that question. Policymakers saying, okay, there was already the printed press, telephone, TV, every of those single artifacts was already at that point a revolution at that point of time. So why internet should be different of this, right? So internet is more important than every single of those examples, telephone, press, telegraph, whatever, because it combines all of them in a single, that it can do all the same things that they were done before with every one of those single devices, right? So what I mean is that internet is very important from the coming times, from now. And to provide also some examples, 2 weeks ago we had the International Summit of Community Wireless Networks in Barcelona. And I got an example, an analogy that from Ben Scott. Ben Scott was working for the Department of State and the Obama administration for a while. You know, Obama administration was looking for, you know, trying to understand how internet is changing the way of doing politics, the way of the administrations should work, and so on. And one of the examples that he was providing is that the government should understand that until now they were very much focused on trying to get the power, to control the power and everything. And because of internet, the big change that is happening also is coming the banality of power. Some of those guys that you see on the pictures that a few years ago was they were looking something like that untouchable at all are gone, actually. And those are one of the nice examples. The other example is about the Chinese government. Chinese government is spending millions of dollars, of euros, or whatever currency you want to use, trying to control the internet. But fortunately, they're still unable to do so. So it means that's the real power of the internet. But we are talking in terms of power. So that means that there is a sad thing behind, is that internet could be very nice, but still could be considered as a weapon itself. Things happening around that. I mean, there the concept of cyber wars can be used in the good way, in the bad way. So something that we have to be cautious. And one of the we say that internet is very important. There is one big problem here, is that, okay, is internet something really accessible to all? And still right now, I mean, every one of you have heard about the digital divide, right? Still now, that digital divide is happening because of many, many things. And since it's that important, is that crucial in terms of changing the way of the societies are getting organized and how the power is being used. So public administration should change their minds that it's not important the power, but it's important to administrate correctly the citizenship, right? So that's the major changes that because of the internet could happen. But to make it really happens, that is not doesn't have to be a digital divide. Okay, but during this introduction, now I'm going to talk a bit about actually what we have done in order to fight that digital divide, right? So in our particular case, in the case of Gifinet, is one of community wireless that have been everywhere. Oh my God, it just hung it. I thought that Linux was never hanging at all. That is not a... Oops. Frozen my screen. Sorry about that. Right? Okay, well. Okay, let's do it that way. I'm sorry, I'm using Fedora as a distribution. Maybe that's why it hanged, right? At that slide, I was going to try to explain you that we have built a network basically in the northeast of Spain of about 30,000 kilometers of wireless links thanks to participating in a wireless community, right? So it means, and now we are connecting about 18,000 homes, which in terms of, being if we compare to regular telco operator, it's not that much. I mean, a telco operator can have millions of customers, right? But for us, for being, just a bunch of people trying to make the infrastructure happen with our own, we are very proud of having achieved that. But still, there is a lot of room for improvement, right? So, in terms of wireless communities, that's one of the largest. Some people are saying, why? Because was not all the case. Was not the case of all the communities to grow like that. So now I'm gonna try to explain what are the differences that makes that makes this happen. Let me now open. It has already booted. And here it is. This is the map, more or less, that what we have achieved as a community. So first lesson, we as a community can, it is the yes we can, but I want to underline together. Alone you cannot do something when you are trying to make an infrastructure like that. You have to connect yourself with somebody else, right? So that's very important, create the community. Individually we cannot achieve anything. Okay, so we're doing that for many, many years. In the beginning of 2000, let's say, we started more or less. And those of you who participate in a community wireless network, you already know that in many cases was about just simply about there was a gateway somewhere, and because you have line of sight trying to connect another place, right? So that gateway was a DSL, whatever we had in a city as something to get the internet from. So, okay, if we're talking about enhancing the internet, it really makes sense to share a DSL with thousands of users. At some point is what happened with a network like that. So we were very proud of having a wireless network, and we have hundreds of gateways, but still, that was the bottleneck. And if you think twice, if we're building the internet, because there is two approaches from the wireless communities on that, trying to make a network, which at the end is private, because it's different, separated from the internet. Our vocation was to create, be part of the internet and extend the internet. So it doesn't make sense to go for those DSLs. So by thinking on that, now I'm going to use another analogy. This is the path to reach my home. Is owned by me. This other is the main street of the village that I'm living, and it's called Gurp. It's in a rural area. So this is the main street. So we are very proud of this big street. It's not a big avenue like we have here in Prague, but still, and it's new. I will tell you later why I'm saying that. It was just arranged this summer, and this is the highways that are across the area. So the big point here is that that's about networks of roads, right? Because at the end I can take the car from my home and go to Prague, and as long as certain rules apply, I have to drive from the left side or from the right side. But at the end I can move from point to point. So that's what internet needs to be, right? It doesn't matter who is the owner, if it's owned by the municipality, by the government, or privately. The point is that it should provide transit to all. So that's why it's, and actually that's about network neutrality. That's why that's important. So it should be open to all. So what we did is to then, okay, let's do, but now not with only wireless, with fiber, right? So it's about hanging fiber. Fiber is so cheap, €1 per meter or so. So this is the same places, and the red line is what we hang at the fiber, aerial, or by doing an agreement with the municipalities, subconducted. And when we reach the high, this kind of roads, fiber is already there. Also is the train, with electricity. So there is lots of dark fiber, public dark fiber, across all the territories. Maybe not next to your home, but not very far from, right? So it's a matter of using them efficiently. And by doing that, now we're opening fiber connections across the territory. So trying to repeat the same thing that we did with the wireless. I'm going to Barcelona in that particular case because this is where is the interchange. The interchange means where internet happens, connecting the network. So by just going there, you get the whole full table of the internet, which is thousands of routes of getting connected to the networks, right? So we get the, so only thing you have to do is reach that highway, which is very likely close to you, right? And then make an agreement and so on. The nice point here is that if you do by fiber, you get a minimum 1 gigabit, which is what fiber provides to you. So very important. The technology, if you control the technology, you know very well in this kind of audience, or you should, right? It means that you can take the full profit of it. Now let's talk a bit on economics, very shortly. Traditional business model on telecommunications is have a stockholders from one side, on the other side consumers as users, but consumers, and then that gray box, which is the internet services providers. So in short, the stockholders do the investments, the service providers with those investments create some infrastructure which are owned by them, and then provide the services, charge for some fees, and hopefully provide some kind of benefit. This is the classic model. What happens on that, and that happens very much in all across Europe, is that when this market gets unbalanced, I mean because of lack of competition, then what happens is that investments go smaller, they are trying to get more profit, fees are as much expensive as they can, and services could be very poor, right? So why open can or commons can become a good alternative? If instead of the infrastructure being owned of the operators are managed as a commons, then everybody can invest in those infrastructure and enjoy and make the business in other places. To give some examples, this is a newspaper piece that was taken just a few weeks from now. Those are young guys. You know, in Spain, unemployment is so high. So young guys who, by establishing themselves and providing services on and charging for those services to the users, for helping the users deploy the network, whatever, but keep the network as a commons, they now can find a job in an environment that right now is very difficult in Spain. So infrastructure as a commons is much more efficient than any other way of managing infrastructures, much more than privately managed. So it's about creating networks as just like the roads that I gave an example. Shortly, and very shortly, because I want to keep some space for questions, we are trying to describe a methodology, because that's okay, that's very nice, but how to reach there, right? So in short, we are saying this is 4 phases that must be in a kind of circle basis that you have to repeat again and again. But if we display this on a Gantt chart, this is about first create a meeting for creating a project for all the, let's say, promoters that want to make something happen in terms of infrastructure in a certain place. That the nicest will be to have public administrations involved, small and medium enterprises or self-employees, I mean professionals, and then volunteers and citizens, right? So if you have 3 of both, more chances to succeed. Then do a project description, find how to finance it, without hoping to get financed from the public administration. You have to finance it from the bottom, and then execute shortly after. Because if you stay too much trying to plan an infrastructure, it never happens, then people get discouraged, right? To give you some examples, to that kind of fiber example that I gave you, for connecting dozens of farms, it costed 18,000 euros, which was something affordable for the farmers. It was about 1,000 euros, and we did this. So we touched that road that I was showing in the previous slides, right? It was done in 2009, and it took 2 weeks to make it happen. It took 3 years to make an agreement with administration to get connected and find out. But that's a problem in administration. But finally, it happened in 2011, right? So since it already happened, and now this year, by just 40,000 euros that were given, but also the neighbors, next neighbors that were looking for having the same gigabit that I was telling you, we did actually that this summer. And this summer, what is enabling us is to make this thing happen. And now we are talking about €500,000 without getting any public aid at all. Because people know, okay, you get 1 gig, no, I want to participate on that. Right? So creating in a very much huge crisis like is happening in Spain, we are able to raising funds just for going bottom up. So being patient, look for quick wins, you know, in the kind of iterations, by phases, there is a huge opportunity here, and to make it happen. Be open to all. I mean, biggest problem is that try to do yourself, and yourself with your friends. Be inclusive, be participative. With public administration is so difficult to manage with him, but it still makes sense because they are managing the public domains, right? So we have to. And even be open to small and medium enterprises. Also, maybe some of us may participate as volunteers, right? And just as closing, the biggest threat, which is the biggest threat, is not, you know, there is lots of threats, but the biggest threat, and it's, I know if you share it, when we're talking about doing something in commons, is the tragedy of the commons. You know that story about? Raise the hands. And problem and tragedy of the commons is when the people, because of self-interest, well, there is the description of the Wikipedia. And with wireless communities, it hits us very much because many of them don't have. I mean, in open source communities, it's very clear to you that to be open source, you have to use the license, right? It's not just a matter of writing some code that say that's open source. You have to say which license are going to use. Same thing if we're talking about infrastructure needs to happen. So in our particular case, we have one license. We call it commons, and that helps in building the infrastructure. So let's have a license for every subject of freedom, right? And open software license doesn't apply to infrastructure. That's it. Questions? If you have some, that's it. Yeah, wait for them. I think it's
so, what is the end target of your project?
Internet for all. I mean, we're an alternative in that place that you have seen on the map. We think that that's too small. The globe is so big, and this is still a small place. So our aim is to cooperate with other communities all across the globe and create a network as an alternative. That's not against the regular telcos. But if you wish to participate in an open network, be something real as a possibility in whatever place you live across the world. So internet for all, we say as in a short term. We are very far from that, but you know, slowly, hopefully we will get there.
What the biggest challenge have you entered during implementation of your project?
There is many challenges for making this happen in terms of technological and social and economical. I still think that the worst challenge is that the people are afraid that what we are doing is something wrong or it's illegal or things like that, which is so stupid, honestly. And sometimes I feel depressed because of that, because we're just about, if we're talking about freedom, freedom happens when people take action on freedom. If you don't do the things because you are afraid of what the government will say or if the telco will do, if the people will be happy, okay, we're not doing nothing wrong. And freedom is about not just about asking for rights, it's about taking the right and making them happen. And for all across Europe and in many countries worldwide, telecommunications has liberalized for a long time ago. So don't be afraid of doing telecommunications by yourself like the big ones. And the big problem is inside of us, in terms of the thinking something wrong, but there is still some others, like cooperating. I mean, we are not building about private networks, so it's about creating community networks and cooperate with others, create community. So there is lots of challenges. So it's difficult to me to choose one.
Thank you.
Okay, time for one more question.
In the beginning of your talk, you you talked about internet censorship. So, what is the internet censorship like in Spain? And does the government put some requirements on your network, like for provide access to them or something like that?
There is legal requirements that apply almost across all Europe, like traceability and so on. Supposedly. And now is a huge debate because they are going to change the network neutrality and so on. You know that there is a debate on that. And hopefully, internet in the very beginning was born as a neutral network, so we just to keep it neutral. We are not against law because of doing that. So, and some rules apply. So, for instance, if you go to our commons, it says you cannot use the network to get into privacy things and things like that. So we were not forced. I think it's very much, there is a lot of paranoia, thinking, oh, okay, but I cannot tell you about China, right? But still in Europe, there is very much room for freedom on the internet, so let's please use it. I don't think that we are in trouble because of that. We never had any legal problem at all. Even in Spain, which I tell you it's not an easy country in the European community. But yeah, I mean, if at given point there is a trouble, we will fight for that. But in real terms, I'm seriously, I mean, we are not in trouble because providing network neutrality license. We are forcing network neutrality. Also, some regulations are still lacking of having it in a written way. Okay? It's done? Okay, thank you very much. So.